Hi guys, Mrs. Vance again. It is time to review for your test, which will be on tomorrow, Thursday, April the 1st, just to go over what's going to be on the test and what kind of things you need to use to study, and also make sure that I didn't leave anything out of the lecture notes that you got along the way. So what's on the test? There are 40 multiple choice questions. Most of the questions are on the current unit. There are several review questions, most of which are on the immune system, which is also one of the body systems and which we covered in our last unit. So be sure and look back over that. About a third of the questions concern interactions of systems, so it's really important for you to understand how the systems work together to do different jobs. There are also 3 multiple choice bonus questions, 2 points each for a total of 6 bonus points, so you can make up to 106 on this. Please do not neglect to do the bonus questions because it doesn't count against you if you miss anything, and if you get it right, you might get a couple extra points on your test grade, which is always a good thing. So what do you need to do? Well, just the overall basics. You need to know which systems work together to do different tasks, why certain systems work the way they do, especially how negative feedback systems work and why they're necessary, the basic characteristics and functions of each system, and the types of cells and tissues where each one is found. The same things that we talked about as we went through the notes in the unit. So we'll talk about each of those in turn, pull out a couple of specific things to talk about. Just to remind you, there are lots of other videos in the Unit 13 resources folder. I put a bunch of other videos. Some of them are TED Ed videos, some of them are Amoeba Sisters, some of them are from a couple of other things. It's always beneficial to look at a couple of extra things just as a reminder as you're reviewing. Maybe there are a couple of little things that maybe stand out to you one way or the other in a different kind of video than just listening to me talk about the systems. So, nervous system. You need to know the functions of the nervous system. To receive signals, and to interpret them, and to determine what the output or the response is going to be. The kinds of cells that are found, which are neurons, okay? You need to understand the difference between the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Remember, the central nervous system is the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system is all the other nerves. And you should be able to identify the parts of a neuron and the functions of the different parts, how the signals are received, where they're received, and how they're transmitted to another cell. And also a little bit about how ions are transported across the cell membrane. And so go back and look at that video if you need to. There's a TED Ed video, I believe, about the nervous system for you to look at, or it may be a National Geographic video, one of those. Anyway, there's some really good videos in there, as well as the notes that you did in class. The endocrine system, again, functions. Remember that the endocrine system is the slower message system, but longer lasting, whereas the nervous system is the fast messaging system in the body. You need to know how hormones work. Remember, they're produced in glands and then transported through the bloodstream to the target cells. And understand how negative feedback works. You might want to look at a couple of examples. Go back and look over, especially we talked about insulin and glucagon, and how the enzymes, the hormones from the pituitary gland influence other cells, other organs, and so forth. The excretory system, again, the main function of the excretory system is osmoregulation, and filtering out nitrogen waste like urea and salts and excess water. Remember, the excretory system includes the skin and lungs in addition to the kidney, because the lungs are exhaling water vapor and carbon dioxide, which are waste products. Your skin also excretes some waste through the skin, through sweat glands and so forth. And so make sure you understand that. Also, make sure you understand the functional unit of the kidney and how that works, the nephron in particular. The digestive system, again, functions to digest and distribute the nutrients that are found in food. Peristalsis is the muscular motion that moves food through the system. There are 2 sets of muscles. There's lengthwise muscles and circular muscles in the intestines that basically work together to move food sequentially down the length of your digestive system. Also, remember that the length of the digestive system depends on your feeding habits, and so if you're a carnivore, they generally have a shorter colon a shorter digestive system altogether, whereas herbivores have a much longer and more complicated digestive system because it's much more difficult to break down plant material, especially the cellulose. Why are the villi necessary? Why are they there? What is the purpose of them? And what do they do for the digestive system? The respiratory system, again, functions the respiratory system to bring in oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. Remember that respiration occurs most efficiently through a thin, moist membrane, and that's why it's important to keep track of, how you're treating your lungs. Remember that the materials that are moving in the respiratory system, the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, move by diffusion across the membrane, cell membrane from the vessels and the cell membrane of the alveoli that are both very thin and only one cell thick. And so diffusion is going to move things from a high concentration to lower. The circulatory system, of course, the functions of the circulatory system there are several different functions, but they are to transport nutrients throughout your body and to take the waste products to the kidneys to be filtered out. Remember that you need to make sure you understand the direction of blood flow through the heart. If you're not real sure about that, go back and look at that again. Valves in the heart and in the veins. Remember, the purpose of valves is to prevent the backward flow of blood, to only allow the blood to flow one direction. We want the blood always to flow from the arteries through the capillaries, then the veins, and then back to the heart. We don't want it to go backwards at all, so we have veins. There are some muscular walls in the arteries, and there's also a lot more pressure coming from the heart and the arteries, whereas in the veins, since you're moving, especially like from your feet up to the heart, you don't want the blood to fall back down, to go back down because of gravity. You want it to keep on moving, and so those valves prevent it from flowing backwards as it moves up your legs and up your arms, other organs, back to the heart. Blood pressure is the pressure exerted on the walls of the arteries by the contraction of the heart muscle, specifically the ventricular contraction as it pushes the blood through. Reproductive system, functions of the reproduction system is to make sure that organisms can reproduce after their own kind. In humans and in mammals in particular, there are hormone cycles that regulate how the reproductive system works. There is a video about in the other videos folder called Pregnancy 101 that goes in a little bit about how pregnancy develops, how baby develops in pregnancy, and that's really beneficial to look at to see how that works. Skeletal system functions, of course, to support your body and provide a place of attachment for your muscles, also to protect your internal organs, like within the chest cavity. And the functions of the parts, you need to know what bone marrow does, what ligaments and tendons do. Remember that bone marrow is found in the bones, and the red marrow is involved in making blood cells, and red blood cells and white blood cells, and the yellow bone marrow is in the long bones, is used to store fats. Ligaments connect bone to bone. Tendons connect muscles to bone. You need to understand the difference between the axial versus the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton, remember, is the skull and the spine, and the appendicular skeleton is the bones of the arms and legs and how they're attached back to the axial skeleton, which also includes the ribs. Types of joints, there were several different kinds. I think with 4 or 5 different kinds we talked about. The hinge joint, which you find in your elbow and your knee, which allows for that dimensional movement that direction. The ball and socket joint that you find in your hip and shoulder that allows for 360-degree rotation. The gliding joint that you find between the vertebra in your spine and in your wrist that allows for some lateral movement like that. And then the pivot joint that you find in where your head connects to your spine, and also in the wrist for the rotation of your arm, of your hand at the end of your arm. The muscular system, there are 3 types of muscles. You need to be able to identify them by appearance and by function. The skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. Skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle are both striated or striped. The smooth muscle is not. The cardiac muscle has branched cells with single nuclei, and the skeletal muscle has multiple nuclei in the cells, and they're in bundles together. You need to understand how muscles contract. There's a really good video in the other videos about the sliding filament theory, or the sliding filament mechanism, and how muscles contract, and it's important to understand how that works as well. The integumentary system is mostly for protection, but also for excretion of waste through sweat, cooling your body. It helps maintain your body temperature. There's a feedback mechanism that we talked about in the notes about how this integumentary system is involved in making sure that you are able to maintain your body temperature. You need to understand the composition of skin and the functions of the different parts, and be sure and go over that again as well. So lots of vocabulary. These are some of the main terms you need to make sure that you are able to define and use as you're answering questions about the various body systems. Be sure and look at the review materials that are there. There's a review sheet with or an online card sort kind of review about the structures and function of the different systems, and also about the integration of systems, how the systems work together. So there are lots of materials available to you to review. You should be able to do well on this. This is probably one of the more interesting and relevant units that we do all year long, because it really applies to your understanding of how your body works. Study hard. Good luck on your test.